To see this video early, join me on Patreon. The Stargate movie is a heavily flawed but creative childhood favourite of mine, and I must admit that while I was aware of the series SG1, I never properly watched it until my teens. And it's good. It is good. I want to stress that right away. I want to stress that because there's actually quite a few things wrong with it. A year after the original Stargate mission, the Stargate suddenly reactivates, and a hostile force attacks Stargate Command. O'Neill and a new team reunite with Dr. Daniel Jackson, who informs them of his discovery of thousands of new Stargates across the galaxy. Following another encounter with the mysterious enemy, Jack's wife is kidnapped, and Earth soon finds itself in conflict with a powerful alien enemy. Aside from one minor character, everyone is recast from the movie. Jack O'Neill is now played by Richard Dean Anderson of MacGyver fame. And here's my first point of contention. I know a few SG1 fans will hear this as blasphemy, but O'Neill got really annoying sometimes. On the whole, he's a good character, but he suffered from what I call the Jack Sparrow effect. O'Neill's shtick is sarcasm. No matter the situation, he always has a cheeky quip for the audience, which is fine for the most part, but as the seasons went on, it seems as if this superficial trait of the character became emphasized more and more. It's clear from the first season that O'Neill is a man with his own morals, integrity and loyalty, and simply uses sarcasm because he doesn't want to get caught up in all that mushy stuff. However, as the threats to the team, Earth and the galaxy continue to escalate, O'Neill became more and more flippant. Flippancy can work sometimes, but O'Neill had a habit of sucking all of the dramatic weight from episodes. If our main character refuses to get invested in what's going on, it can make it hard for the audience to do so as well. Sorry SG1 fans, but Kurt Russell was better. Russell's arc in the movie went from stoic and emotionless to a winking 90s action hero, and while Russell had the down-to-earth grittiness to make it work, Richard Dean Anderson substitutes sincerity for corniness. Michael Shanks stepped in to play Dr. Daniel Jackson, and he's really fantastic in this show. At first he borrows a lot from Spader's performance, almost doing an impression of him, and his weak nerd archetype is maintained early on, but he develops far as the show goes on. Growing in confidence and muscle mass turns him into his own man, and makes him much more of a noble hero than O'Neill. Amanda Tapping as Samantha Carter is another welcome addition. It's really great that the show introduced a female character who's able to be the science whiz and a soldier without becoming an aggressive tomboy. Tapping gives a likable, optimistic performance, which positively adds to the team dynamic. But my favourite addition is Teal'c. A former Jaffa, he switches sides in the pilot episode to join SG1 and fight against his enslavers. Christopher Judge's sheer physical size gives him a literal gravitas and screen presence, but rather than just a stoic warrior, Teal'c's honesty and moral fortitude give him more dimensions than expected. But when given the chance, Christopher Judge really does have acting muscles to stretch, as well as all of his other muscles. Don Davis and most of the other supporting cast members are solid, and Corey Nemec as Jonas Quinn, who joined in season 5, is likeable if a bit bland. I suppose the biggest problem with Stargate SG1 is that the main villains became a bit dull after so many episodes. I also don't like that these were supposed to be the same aliens as Ra from the movie. In the movie, Ra's origins were clouded in mystery, said to be the last of his kind. The vague origin coupled with his cool technology gave him an existential threat as well as an immediate physical one. But relatively early into the show's run, we discovered that he was a parasitic snake thing of the System Lords. And despite their immense power, the regularity at which the Goa'uld are defeated is pretty laughable. Instead of them escalating as a threat, they just seem to get weaker and weaker. Apophis was a great first main villain, embodying and expanding upon everything which made Ra great in the movie, and his final episode adds some real depth to him as a character. Anubis was dark and generally scary, but after him most Goa'uld villains fell flat. Ball is just some random. Despite this, it was nice of the show to introduce other alien threats and races. The Replicators were a nice addition, even if the plots of their episodes did become, well, repetitive. And the Asgardians, while cool and fascinating, had a habit of swooping in as magic deus ex machinas. All that being said, Stargate SG1 hit some real highs. Seasons 5 to 7 are the true height of the show, with the Lost City two-parter probably being the best of the show's run, and should have served as the series finale. And while 5 to 7 are great, the final two seasons, 9 and 10, are also great, but for completely different reasons. Seasons 9 and 10 almost need a completely different video review, as it was supposed to be a new spin-off show called Stargate Command. O'Neill is no longer a major character, General Hammond is gone. Instead, Ben Browder, Claudia Black and Beau Bridges step in to embark on a completely new storyline, centered on a galactic crusade overseen by essentially the sci-fi equivalent of the Antichrist, who serves a race of energy beings called the Ori. These two seasons are awesome. The Ori are shown as this immense threat, and their looming mysterious presence, rather than smirking bad guys, brings back some of that existential threat I mentioned earlier. It's also nice that they move into medieval mythology rather than sticking with ancient Egyptian, as this was the plan of the original movie's writer Dean Devlin. And if you've seen my Why Farscape is Awesome video, you know how glad I am to see Browder and Claudia Black on screen together. Browder essentially plays John Crichton again as Colonel Mitchell, except less crazy, less smart, but more of a badass. And Claudia Black gives a remarkably charming turn as Vala, and her chemistry with all of the cast beams off screen. Oh, and that Farscape spoof episode was genius. The worst part about this arc is that it didn't have a proper ending until the straight-to-DVD movie Arc of Truth, which is great, although the other straight-to-DVD movie, Stargate Continuum, is not so great. With Stargate SG1 having 10 seasons of content and 2 movies, it has its highs and lows. On average, episodes are solid, and on occasion they're horrible, and on other occasions they're fantastic. It's fast-paced, light-hearted sci-fi adventure with wobbly characters and storytelling sometimes, but overall, the show is a hell of a good time. It's just that Stargate SG1 is not the height of the franchise. That comes in our next video.